Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. I'm so happy to be back with an incredible woman, a real master yogi. This is her in this picture here doing the bow, but Kim Tang, welcome. Let's see what you look like, because it's great to see your yoga poses, but let's see the real person behind the yoga pose. So there you are. Great.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for being back on this show. I know there's so much we touched upon that we wanted to keep the conversation going, because you're not just an incredible yogi. You've thought about this, and you've used your consciousness to sort of go as deep as I've ever met anyone going into their bodies. So let's talk about some of the points that we touched upon last time, and you wanted to show some more of those poses. So where did you want to start? Because, you know, you said there was a lot of things we touched upon, and now we'll be able to get back into those. So what would you like to proceed?
Hi, Alan. Thank you for asking me where I want to start, because always I start with love and gratitude, which are the highest frequencies, and there is no resistance in love and gratitude. So once again, I want to start by thanking you for inviting me back to finish that conversation. I did want to dot some I's and cross some T's and circle back around. And what we talked about is that I think of conversations as having a shape, taking a shape. And sometimes a conversation starts at a focal point, a center, and it just kind of gets bigger and bigger in a spherical direction. And sometimes a conversation is like the shape of a tree. So the trunk is kind of a general outline, but then there are these tangents, right? But still you get back on track in the outline. But you and I think that what we did was we took this really organic, free-flowing kind of windy road, and it started and finished full circle. But all along the way, there were so many opportunities to kind of branch off and detour and reroute. And I wanted to go back and touch on some of those. So I think that's where we begin.
No, it's great, because you're so dedicated to being in body, to learning about the body, to merge and blend what it is that we really are as embodied creatures. I mean, there's so much there to unpack, as you would say, like being embodied as consciousness. And then, of course, you take everything about those ideas into yoga itself. So yeah, talk about the process of what you said, intention, and thinking about using your mind to create poses that, I mean, I can barely touch my toes. So everything that you do beyond that it's sort of miraculous. I mean, that you can bend your spine. I mean, other people can, but you really mastered it. You've gone into competition, but you have something else I think other people don't have. You have the internal consciousness. You said it starts with consciousness. So talk about some of those things you've created too in your practice.
Thank you. Okay. So yes, I want to start talking about consciousness, but I want to begin with something that you asked me the first time we talked. And I said, oh God, we could go in either direction with this. Well, we went in one direction in that conversation, and now I'd like to go in the other direction.
Sure.
You asked me about visualization. And you asked me, am I able to visualize these things before I do them? And that's where I'd like this conversation to begin.
I love that, because you know what Aristotle says? He says all ideas begin as a phantasm, like a projection of the mind. And you know, that was an insight back then, but yes, it's still insightful. Everything that's created begins with an idea that we somehow imagine. So yes, please do that.
Definitely. Creation first exists on the level of the mind. Mm-hmm. And also there are other references too. So Albert Einstein spoke as to literally imagination being far more important than what he called knowledge. And actually, there were other references like Osho referenced. Now, this is important because we'll translate it into yoga, single point of focus. And when your mind is concentrated on a single point and you imagine in that state of focus, that is a formula for creation. And I think that that really well expresses why I call that platform of my life creation. So there are a lot of things like that that I want to talk about. I lived in like a perpetual state of inspiration. I think I told you that I would literally just, I was so inspired in my practice, I could not do it. I could not do it. And people would say to me like, don't you ever get bored? I'm like, look at them like they have 3 heads. What? Like I can't get enough. And my inspiration in my practice inspired my teaching. Right. And so this was just this snowballing effect of energization, I would call it.
Yeah,
So,
no, I see how excited you still are because it's great. You know, you're doing what you love and you've mastered it. You've really, in a way, mastered the body, the internal, external, I'm sure you're like in touch with every single part, every joint, every movement. And that's
yeah.
why I like interviewing you and people like you who've gone to the top of their game because it shows us what the human potential is. I mean, I personally don't want to put that much time in. I mean, I like it, but I have other things, but you've done this one really well. So, yes.
So funny that you keyed in on those words because, you know, when I teach, I talk about tapping into not only like the musculoskeletal, so every muscle, tendon, bone, ligament, joint, but also every organ, gland, and system. And by the way, every single time that you practice. And again, that's energizing. But I also was going to say to you that when we talked about, by the way, maybe I should mention for anyone who's viewing, watch that first conversation that we had, right? Because we're getting ready to snowball on all those things that we talked about. This is definitely a continuation of the same conversation. It's not different topics. It's the same like foundational talking point. But
I also want to tell people if they want to find you in general to go to Kim Tang Yoga, right? That's how they can find you.
In all of its forms. It's the
right.
.com is under construction with a new platform, but there's also a Kim Tang Yoga Facebook, Kim Tang Yoga Instagram, Kim Tang Yoga YouTube channel and whatnot. But I wanted to tell you that when I talked about that self-cultivation leads to service, when I was self-cultivating, I was so inspired. And when I converted that to service, I now am in creation on a, I'm going to call it a higher level. It's no longer about me. And now I receive the same amount of, you know, being energized and inspired when I'm able to actually share myself in the form of my practice through my teaching. And so again, that kind of circle just gets bigger and bigger. But let me, so I made some notes this time so that we don't skip past them.
Right. No.
And,
I want you to be happy. I want you to say everything because, I mean, you can't say everything because it's been so many years of practice and internal awakenings, realizations, but say what you can because I want people to watch this to be better yogis, but also to understand your process. It's an awakening too that you are teaching people. And I think that's.
Thank you. I do.
Yes.
So let's do this. I want to talk about how yoga is consciousness and how asana, doing postures, can lead to immaculate clarity, self-acceptance. And by the way, in my lineage, we practice in front of a mirror. And that mirror is perhaps one of the most important tools, not just because we're balancing and we're trying to adhere to form, but also because that mirror is intended for you to be able to look straight into your own eyes and to learn to love yourself exactly as you are. And by the way, so you can learn to love others exactly as they are, to learn to look at yourself in the mirror and accept yourself exactly as you are. so that you can learn to love others exactly as they are. So that mirror is almost a drishti, and your own eyes, or perhaps your third eye, or perhaps right here, this is my focal point when I'm balancing. So I try to keep this nice and level, none of this, you know, minimal of that and lots of that. So, you know, that drishti is also a tool to reflect upon your inner world in your mind. But that actually is not even what I wanted to show you. I want to go back to that picture that you opened with.
Yeah.
And I want to reflect on some of the talking points before I get into the consciousness of this posture. So first, let me show you this. Okay, you got that?
Yes, I see that.
This posture is called standing bow pulling pose. And this posture is obviously standing, balancing, back bent, spine twist, maybe not one day, standing splits, doesn't matter. And in this posture, the entire left side body is shortened and compressed to its lowest setting, while the entire right side body is lengthened to its maximum. And I'll just throw in right here that one of the therapeutic benefits for this posture is that it transversely shunts the blood from in this side, the left to the right. So the blood traverses from left side body to right. And when you do the other side, from right side body to the left. And this is one of the few postures in which you'll receive, you know, that magnitude of transverse blood I'll call it transfusion, just a redirecting. Right. And this posture, let's see, standing, bouncing, back bend, spine twist, maybe not. Okay, this is what I want to say. You have to be flexible to get in.
I mean, it took you years to get, you don't just go into the yoga class and do this. How long did it take you to actually achieve towards this?
I mean, it probably took me 6 or 8 years.
Wow.
This was later on in the practice. I had already been doing it a while. But what I want to talk about is, you know, not only do you have to be flexible to get into a position like this, but you have to be very, very strong in order to hold it in stillness against gravity. Now that is where our talking point begins, because in order to hit this and hold this in stillness against gravity. Okay, now I will digress and we will start at the beginning.
Okay.
Everyone, all of us, me, you, everyone has, by virtue of being human with a left and a right hemisphere, the Ida Pingala, we have that chitta vritti, the chitta vritti naroda. It's the incessant mind chatter. It's
the monkey mind.
Yeah. Exactly. And in that monkey mind, what happens is your thoughts are thinking you. Mm-hmm. And your thoughts are actually thinking you so rapidly that you can't even keep track of them. Like if I were to tell you, okay, I want you to sit down with a piece of paper and organize your thoughts, mm-hmm. you wouldn't be able to do it. It would be like trying to look at your own eyeballs.
Right.
And what goes wrong is that people think that they are those thoughts.
Right.
But those
that
thoughts
is the problem. They're their thoughts, and they think they're their ideas and opinions, and they didn't have an opinion, they wouldn't know who they are, but they're not that. They are the observer of the thought. This is, you know, Buddhist practice, whatever you want to call that. Yes, I agree with you.
And the thoughts are not true. And the thoughts are typically self-critical and self-loathing, or compare leads to despair, or complaining, anything that takes you actually out of present moment in pure time.
Right.
So, and by the way, that'll be a more important talking point as well. You think
Can I just tell you a joke I saw that's really about, it was in the New Yorker magazine, you know, New Yorker magazine, it's a big intellectual New York. Anyway, there's a guy at a bar and he's yelling at the bartender, and he's sort of drunk. He says, "Hey, buddy, you have no idea who I think I am." Because we all have this story, and that story is a lie because it's a story. It's not the moment. But anyway, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, yes to what you just said, because next time we talk, when we have that spiritual conversation, let's start with that. Will you
Okay.
remember that?
Yeah,
Here it is on recording.
I
Let's
actually have the
start.
cartoon on my desktop somewhere. But yes, that just
Okay.
reminds me. Yes, go
Now,
ahead.
here's what people might or might not know. When you have those thoughts and they're just rapid fire, every thought has an emotional charge related to it. And every emotional charge is a direction of flow of energy in the spine. So what happens is, when you are in pure time presence, which, by the way, remember what we talked about, there is no better way to learn how to concentrate than through standing balancing postures in a yoga practice.
Mhm.
And remember, we're getting ready to talk about the profound significance of concentration facilitates meditation.
Mhm.
Meditation facilitates transformation. And I want to come back. I want to make sure that I loop through and scoop up on all of these notes that I've made. These are really things I want to talk about. So here's what happens. You have all these thoughts. These thoughts are thinking you can't keep track of them. And each and every thought has a directional flow of energy through the spine. So say, for example, that you look at yourself in the mirror and you just have some negative inner dialogue, and you either don't like what you see, or maybe you like what you see next to you better than you like what you see. And, you know, whatever that is, the energy travels down. Anything critical, anything separate, anything diminishing or judgmental is going to make energy flow down through your spine. Anything affirming is going to make the energy flow up through the spine. Simply gratitude, love, joy, presence is going to make energy flow up.
So is that where you put your consciousness in order to extend the spine upward into?
Nope, stay with me here.
Okay. Go ahead.
Everything critical makes your energy go down. Everything affirming, love, gratitude, peace, and joy makes your energy go up. Everything distracting makes your energy travel distally out, away from the spine. And concentration makes the energy come in, centered at the center, the core of your being, through the spine and the chakras. So remember, because we're talking about that standing bow pulling pose, that standing balancing back bend spine twist, maybe not one day, it doesn't matter, standing splits. And remember, we're talking about one side of the body being completely shortened and one side of the body being completely lengthened. And you have to be flexible to get there, but you have to be strong to hold it, hit it and hold it in stillness against gravity. And what that, here's where we are. What that requires is tremendous communication, cooperation, negotiation, concentration with the right and left hemispheres of the brain. That single point of focus in the mirror. Don't even blink your eyes. You might lose the balance. When you are in that state, the natural response is that state of concentration is the meditation. And now you have the natural response, not the intention. The natural response is that you have redirected the flow of energy in and up through the spine. So what I want to say is we use, Osho might say technique is telling you how, not why, no philosophy, just how to do it. And if you do it, it will come. I think that's what a yoga posture is. I think that's what this posture is. It's a technique for which the natural response is the concentration. And by the way, in that field, because remember, I started talking about the monkey mind, the incessant mind chatter. And so you walk in with that monkey mind, but through the technique of the asana and all of its points that I've already discussed, now you've silenced the chatter in the mind through single point of focus, through command, from the brain through the spine to the body. to hit it and hold it in stillness and connect to calm, deep breath. And in that moment, the voice that you do hear is the voice of truth and the voice of clarity. And I'm going to say the voice that tells you that you have always been perfect according to your divine birthright, that you are now and you always will be. And so you cannot be thinking about anything other than connectedness to breath and command of all those parts. And that is the meditation. And that is how concentration through a posture like this one, or the one we talked about last time, facilitates meditation, which I'm now going to introduce as that beyond mind state, that pure time present moment, which is where you exist in truth. So none of the past, none of the future. And that's where you are expressing the truth of who you are in all of its clarity. And that's where you can gain that acceptance for others exactly as they are, love for others exactly as they are, because you're self-cultivating it within yourself, and then you can see the world through those eyes.
Well, let me just ask you a question about that. So you're saying positive, good intention thoughts lift this, go upward, right? They move your spine, the intention of the energy up. Is that what you meant?
I am, yes. However, there's an important discernment there. Yeah. And let me give you an important example too. So I do, obviously I've done a lot of practice, and I also do a lot of coaching. And there's this thing that happens commonly where somebody is working very hard to be able to achieve an intricate, complex asana. Maybe it's deep. And when they get it, they go, oh my God, and then boom, they're out of the posture, just like that. So then the question becomes, well, wait a minute, I thought that you said anything affirmative makes the energy travel up through the spine. It does, but I also said anything distracting pulls you away. So a combination of affirmation with distraction will culminate in a fall, just as a combination of anything critical and distracting, or anything even critical at all, will probably cause you.
If you're holding that posture and you want to extend, you hold on to that positive thought, because that will help with the posture.
No, you don't hold on to a positive thought. So you're not sitting in that posture saying, hey, this is great. You're not. You're in such, I call it pure time, which is beyond mind. That is when you have made that crossover. So you're saying to yourself, okay, where am I now? Watch this. Let me scoot back a little. I'm going to stand up for this. Okay. So you're saying to yourself, where am I now? 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 And if there's ever even a single second that you're whisked away from the now, you're going to lose track of some very fine imbalance, right? So now, I'm breathing and single point of focus, and I'm kicking and I'm stretching and I'm dropping my body down and I'm kicking up and I'm kicking back and I'm stretching forward. And where am I now? Where am I now? Where am I now? And it is that now that is the concentration that becomes the meditation that moves you beyond mind to pure time.
Nice. Yeah. So you're holding that posture in pure time because you have to be so present just in the body. That's
definitely.
That's what you're saying. And that's true of all those deep, or any yogic posture, really, right?
Not every yoga posture is a balancing posture, which is why the balancing postures are so potent at teaching you concentration. So not every posture requires as much concentration. Not all postures are created equal. And I'm not even talking about the depth. There are different types of postures and there are different lessons inherent in different types of postures. So how about this? Let me show you a video of, so I used to do what I would call it 3 seconds to a lock. And that means that I would, from the time I started the posture, within 3 seconds, I'd be in what I call a lock on the line with no regrip. And I would hit it and hold it still like a statue for 10 seconds. And then or maybe more. And then I would exit and go right back in, and then do the same thing, exit and go right back in, and do it repetitively. And what it really speaks to is a few things. One is that fine connection to the laws of nature that I talked about last time we talked, gravity being your best teacher, and in opposing forces, there's tension, and in equal and opposite tension, there's balance, and in balance, there's stillness. In stillness, there's silence, and in silence, there is space, and space is always the goal. And that no mind, beyond mind, is where space resides. Oh, yeah. So that's what I wanted. That's what I want to tell you about when we come back. Let me show you this video.
Okay. Don't forget. Yeah. Okay.
So this is a video of that posture, but this is the real time actually doing the posture. And I call this like 3 seconds to a lock, and then I'd hit it and hold it. I'd kick back, stretch up, exit, and go right back again. So I would do a lot of sets of this repetitively. So watch this. Standing bow. I'll play it a few times. I'll just let you watch.
Okay. You make it look so easy. I mean, I have to say that it's amazing.
So now I want to talk into it a little bit now that you've seen it. Standing bow. Right there in the beginning. Let me see if I can kind of back up on it. There are some equal and opposites that I'm setting into place. Right there.
What
right
are you,
there.
you're holding your foot and
Well, what I'm doing is more than that. Watch this. My right side body is stretching up as much as it possibly can. And my left side body is stretching down.
Wait, the left side is the part holding the foot. Is that the left side?
Yeah. So watch the shoulders here. So the right length, the entire right side body, the entire length from the heel through the ceiling is going to stretch up. And my left shoulder relaxed. I'm going to kick down. The left side body is going to go down right there. I'm setting up equals and opposites. That's just a law of nature right there. And that will create the stability to be able to move into this posture, to literally kick into a lock in 3 seconds. So watch that. If we start the clock right here, this is when I actually start to make the move. So 1, 2, 3.
Right.
I counted fast.
No, it's amazing though.
And then if you can hear the clock ticking, you can actually count it out. It's maybe 10 or 11 seconds, but I was doing that kind of over and over and over with actually that level of kind of precision and stability because of the technique inherent in just learning that gravity is your best teacher, and in the laws of nature, in opposing forces, there is tension, and you have to have, you know, equals and opposites. For every single action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And that level, that's another level of just connection and concentration and awareness, and that single point of focus. You cannot be kind of looking around with your eye gaze.
You're in touch with the contradictions, the stretching and the compression, right?
Absolutely.
You have both of that in your awareness, and that creates the balance. You're saying that creates the physical balance to gravity?
Yeah, and I like that you said that because I think we actually talked about this a little bit last time. Ultimately, in a really deep practice, the way that you go deeper is not by trying harder, working harder, it's by learning what to relax. And I think we actually talked about that last time, is that the way that I define a really deep level of practice is not by how deep your back bend is or how open your hips are. It's a very high level of practice, is a high level of self-awareness. And that comes from that singling out the pieces and commanding them independently. But also what we're talking about here now is the ability to contract every single thing that you need to support the posture. And more importantly, the ability to relax everything else, which, by the way, in every posture is your face, your mind, and your breath. So I want to get now to, I just want to kind of dot some I's and cross some T's on this conversation about the standing bow pulling pose.
Yes.
So let me make sure that we've covered it.
It's called the standing bow.
Standing bow pulling pose. It's called Dandimana Dhanurasana.
Okay.
And I don't know that see, there are two types of thinking, right? There's a very focused thinking, which is what I would call in a yoga practice, single point of focus. It's that concentrate and meditate, don't even blink your eyes, you might lose the balance. And that's what I'm showing you here with the drishti, with your own single point of focus, eye gaze in the front mirror, is that focused concentration. But when you're in that state, you shift over to the kind of no mind, beyond mind that I keep kind of referencing for a reason. So there was a story that I heard about actually the artist, the master artist, Salvador Dali. And do you know this story?
No, but I love Salvador Dali, so I'm interested. I did go to his museum in Spain, but yeah.
Wow, incredible. Well, and by the way, Thomas Edison also. They both, and by the way, Albert Einstein also, and by the way, all great yogis with all certainty understand that we have to get past the thinking mind. And that is the way that concentration silences the chatter and gets you beyond mind into pure time. So Salvador Dali, what he used to do is now I'm going to use my own words to tell you this story. For example, me, I do the most powerful creation, manifestation, when I call it like, and typically it's when I lay my body down, but it might be in any pratyahara situation, like a float tank or a sauna or, anything like that, where I get what I call me, and me at the table. So I get my conscious mind, my subconscious mind, who's always at the helm, whether you know it or not, and the superconscious mind. I get me, and me at the table, and we have a little talking to, because if there's any inner conflict, if there's any dispute or disagreement between me, and me, then it, no way, no how, right? So you've got to get everyone resolved. Well, and now I'm going to expand upon that concept to the thinking world of Albert Einstein and Salvador Dali and Thomas Edison, who knew this and practiced it in a very powerful, tangible, effective way. They knew with all certainty that when they are using that focused mind, they're working hard to try to solve something on the level of intellect, on the level of mind. That's not when the answers come. The answers come when you let go of it. Mm. So, for example, Salvador Dali, what he used to do is he would visualize a piece, create it, think on it, develop it in his mind, in the thinking mind. And then he would take his set of keys in his hand, and he would sit up in a chair with his keys in his hand, but his arm hanging down side, and he would just fall asleep. And so, in other words, he would enter that state of super consciousness where he had, he and he at the table, and far more open to receiving, beyond mind, pure time, no mind. And the second that the keys would clink or drop, he would open his eyes and get to a piece of paper or his art. Right. And that's where the answers would come.
He was in that alpha creative state.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is very, very similar to a yoga practice. And that's why I called mine creation, because remember, I told you that I would lay my body down at night and just visualize. I was so excited. I could not do it. And I'd be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How can I do that? How can I do that? How can I do that? And by the way, I should clarify this because it's been misinterpreted in the past. I was talking to a student one time about my, what I call how can I consciousness. And remember, you've got to go back to that first talk that we had, because I told you that there are a lot of teachers that say, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And there are also teachers who go, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. And some teachers do both. You have to do this, you can't do that, you have to, And I let go of all that. And I just said, how can I? But what I meant by that was therapeutic. This has been misinterpreted in a way that was not therapeutic. So in other words, how can I get in a position where gravity indicates to me that this is the right position by virtue of less muscling and strain. How can I open what I need to? How can I strengthen what I need to? How can I create strength in that position? How can I? This is all therapeutic. It's all sovereign. So I am, please don't viewers, please don't misinterpret. One time I had a student who said, okay, I like this. How can I? So she kind of like got herself in a certain position and then had one person do this to her and one person do that to her. That is not what I'm talking about. In other words, you get over here and pull and you get over there and push. No, that's not what I'm talking about. My teaching is, the highest level of therapeutic, using your strength to create space, expressing range into the space. And then when you use your strength to create flexibility, you get stronger, and then the stronger you get, the more space you create, so the more range you can express. So it's this upward cycle, right? So again, there's like a lot going there's like a lot going on there. It's a lifetime of learning for sure.
But what I love about your work is, in a way, this is your art form. This is your creativity. This is like other people are excited about making movies or singing or dancing or writing music. This is your inspiration, creativity, and your practice as well. So
yeah,
I like that about what you're saying.
Thank you. I think there was just one more thing to talk about with standing bow. Mm-hmm. And that is that, remember how I said to you, because this kind of loops back to what we talked about last time. I was like, like we already talked for so long, but there was so much more to talk about.
Right.
And remember how I said to you just now about standing bow. You have to be flexible to get in that position, but you have to be strong to hold stillness against gravity in that position. And remember, one side of the body is completely short and one side of the body is completely long, right? Mm-hmm. And this takes extraordinary communication, cooperation, negotiation between the two hemispheres of the brain. And I also made reference to flow of energy through the spine. So now twice now I've hit upon a more esoteric concept of how asana leads to, enlightenment, leads to clarity, leads to peace, leads to presence, and all of these things. How concentration facilitates meditation, facilitates transformation. And that is that when you have that type of balance between the hemispheres in the brain, Ida and Pingala, left and right hemispheres, you have the balance between the hemispheres. Now you've opened the channel through which the chakras reside. Mm-hmm. And now you're really getting your energy flowing through the chakras. Now, remember how I said to you a minute ago that I said to you that anything that is like negative separateness makes energy travel down in your spine, and anything that is affirmative makes energy travel up, and anything that is distracting makes energy travel distally out, and anything that is concentration makes energy travel in. And now we're talking about flow of energy through the spine, and that in fact these great yogis that are sitting in the Himalayas meditating on the most esoteric level are actually doing the same thing. They're directing the flow of energy through the spine, and they're directing it in and up, in and up. And ultimately, if you think of, where each chakra resides, and I really hope that one day we'll have my talk that I call Chakra Diagnostics, you can actually literally discern where someone is really wide open and free flowing through their chakras and where they are blocked in the way of things like, quite literally, personality, their contribution, the outpicturing of their consciousness through the words that they select, and even behavioral patterns. Now, what happens is the more you balance these hemispheres, maybe in the form of standing bow pulling pose and concentrating in stillness against gravity, and you open the channel of energy through the spine and you get everything in and up, you can actually, maybe you're seated at the root. And now maybe you can actually unblock that and get a little higher. And now you're seated at the second and then seated at the third. And ultimately, kind of that Christ itself is just being seated here, right? Through the eye of love and through the eye of gratitude and through the eye of knowing that everything is perfect and as it's meant to be, perfect in the way of exactness, right? So definitely we'll hold that conversation. So Biggie, we have to have that one just in and of
So
itself.
you just wanted to conclude about the standing bow pose as far as that level of consciousness. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you're quite literally raising your vibration by unblocking the chakras and raising the flow of energy, concentrating it and raising it through the spine. That is how you unblock, is by directing the energy through to it and through it. Got to get to it to get through it, right?
Great. No, keep going with your line of thinking. So
Yeah. So yeah, now what do you think about that? I think I've now said everything I wanted to say in that moment about standing bow. There's more to these postures than meets the eye, and anyone can tell you to suck your stomach in and point your toes harder. But
Well,
there's more to you than your body. This is not gymnastics.
no, the only thing I want to say about that, such a complex pose, is that each step along the way is sort of a pose in itself. So you're building something in the process until you get to the place that is the ultimate. But each step, you need to do exactly what you're saying as well. That's what I'm thinking about.
Where am I now? Where am I now? Where am I now? Where am I now? A lot of people in a posture, I'm going to call it, they react to their fall. So what that means is they go into something, they fall out, and then they go, oh, I fell. And so they're reacting after the fact to the fact that they fell, which is the clearest indication that they weren't in pure time in the moment. If you are in such a state of presence, where am I now? Where am I now? Where am I now? Then as you start to detect any imbalance, you're able to make that correction in the moment before it's too late, before you fall. So it's another way that asana teaches you pure time presence.
So how do you start that? Where are you now? Like we're sitting here. So do you start there or do you start when you're on your yoga mat? I mean, I guess all the time, but where do you start in the practice?
You start, I'm gonna say that what I'm really referring to right now is like a command-based practice. And what you do is start with command. Quite literally, let me explain. You send a command from the brain through the spine. So this command comes in the form of maybe instructions. And whether the instructions are given to you by your teacher or whether these are internal instructions. For me, it starts with setting up the framework of contraction. What do I need to support this posture? I need to lock my knee, set my gaze. I need to palm and point. I need to stretch from the shoulder through the fingertip. And if I'm stretching up this much, then I need equal and opposite. I need to stretch down this much, right? So I'm setting up a framework that I will then keep track of. And that keeping track of now and now and now and now, and the equals and opposites, and the up as much as you down, and the forward as much as you back, and the right as much as you left, and the keeping track of it is the concentration.
I get it.
So, and
Yeah.
the breath, and the breath.
The breath. Where's the breath come in the concentration?
I want to tell you that breath is number one. And it's so funny because we keep like not mentioning it because of the context and the subject matter, but the breath is far more important than the posture. So remember, we talked about last time, you're basically, you're breathing into a position, and then you breathe into your body in that position. And then you breathe into a different position and you breathe into your body in that position. So this is a 90-minute or 60-minute breathing exercise. And the breath is number one. The breath, as a matter of fact, let's make a tiny reference, but we'll have to talk sometime about only breath.
Okay.
But the breath, how do I want to say this? Let's keep this light, because otherwise it'll be too big of a conversation. The breath is the bridge between mind and the body. The breath is what connects your mind to your body. And the breath is actually where you reside. And this is why, so, I've done a lot of back bending in my life, which is a perfect segue into the next topic. And I want to tell you that when I teach people about back bending, I tell them that, and here's me like the queen of backbending. I tell them it's not even about backward bending. It's about connecting to calm, deep breath while you bend your spine backwards, because if you can breathe there, then you can calm down there. And
I-
if you can calm down there, then you can spend time there.
Mm.
And if you can spend time there, then you can do some work there. And if you can do some work there, then you can, I call it, get to know yourself in that position and love your life in that position. And that is all about the breath. And so when you're taking a yoga class, and remember consciousness, learn it on the mat to use it in the life. A
Yeah.
yoga class is quite literally an experiential breathing exercise. And so in your yoga class, in every given moment, if you were to ask yourself, what am I doing? The very first answer, unequivocally, should be, I'm breathing and I'm stretching up, I'm breathing and I'm kicking back, I'm breathing and I'm breathing and. It's a breathing exercise. It's an open-eyed moving meditation, breathing exercise, series of choices that you make on your mat. And when you learn that on your mat, then you become more aware of it in the life. So it's not just a matter of concentrating while you're in yoga class.
Mhm.
You learn it in yoga class so that you can use it in your life. It's not just a matter of connecting to calm, deep breath in a yoga class. You learn it in yoga class so you can connect to calm, deep breath at all times in your life. It's not just about freeing yourself from limitation in the forms of postures in a yoga class. It's so you can free yourself from limitation and self-sabotage in your life. Because one more time, the consciousness with which you conduct your practice is the same as the consciousness with which you conduct your life.
Right. So I would love to take a yoga class with you, but just start on that level. Just start on the mat, breathing and presence, and where am I now? That would be the right way to start. And then you feel your body more. And then, but the point of the asanas is to fine tune the mind as much as the body, would you say? I'm just curious.
Fine tune the mind. I would say it's to learn the modifications of the mind, to learn that you are not the thoughts. Once again, perfect segue. Let's do this. So if I may, not even switch tracks, segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, because it's definitely all on the level of the mind.
Great. Great.
And that is that. So remember, yoga is a consciousness. We started the very first talk with what is yoga. And I said, it's not what yoga is not. It's not gymnastics. It's not contortion in my case. It's a consciousness. It's a state of being. It's a frequency. It's a level of deep awareness, inner awareness, with which you ground and through which you project, right? So now, if I said that yoga is a consciousness, I want to tell you that my early practice came through Hatha yoga practice, and later on, I started practicing a lot, and teaching a lot of Yin yoga, and I immediately recognized that these two practices are different on the level of the mind. It's not just that they involve different postures, and it's not just that the postures are executed differently. So for example, in a very yang style practice.
Yeah, can you make the distinction between yin and yang? I know what that means, but I don't know how you are intending that. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking that. In a very yang practice, you are affecting change by contracting at the edge, assertively affecting change. So you're at your maximum expansion capacity and you're stepping on the gas in that position, shall we say. You're contracting, you're pushing, you're pulling, you're being assertive about affecting a change at the edge.
Okay.
It requires, it moves a lot of blood and muscles.
So you're going to your edge, you're pushing yourself as far as you can.
I mean, therapeutically, not aggressively, not mindlessly, but yes, you are actively affecting change at the edge.
Okay.
And by the way, it's a very Indian-based practice that involves, it's more related to chakras.
Okay.
Whereas a yin practice does affect change, it does assert change, but it's by surrendering at your edge and doing long holds on deep stretches in a deep state of relaxation. So let's say, for example, in a yin posture, let's say that on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is the maximum stretch. You only want to get by comparison, you only want to get to like 7.5 or 8, and you want to just relax there. And the caveat is it should be a stretch that kind of like requires you have to concentrate in order to be able to relax in that position. It's enough of a stretch that it commands relaxation.
I get
But
it.
the caveat is you absolutely positively must be able to relax the target area in that position. Otherwise, you've asked for too much. And what happens with yin is the magic is the phase shifting over time. So quite literally, maybe you get to a stretch that's about an 8 out of 10 and you just relax and breathe and you just tune in and let go. And you don't even realize, I like to say, I like that this is becoming about yin, but we're going in a direction with this. I like to say, Ellen, you don't even realize that, I don't mean you, everyone, me, everyone, you don't even realize the load you carry, how heavy it is and how long you've been carrying it until the last you put it down. And what happens with yin is it is that peeling of the layers of the onion. So what'll happen is you'll get to a stretch that's like an 8 out of 10 and you just relax and relax and relax. And through this phase shifting, it's like a cold hard butter softening. Over time, it starts to melt, and then it actually, your 7.5 or 8 becomes more like a 6 or a 6.5, and you have the realization, oh, this isn't that deep anymore. And then it invites you in, and when it invites you, you say yes, and then you go a little deeper, and so on. So this is called chasing your edges in a yin practice. And I want to tell you, okay, this is a side note because it's not where I'm going with it. I recognized immediately that okay, and by the way, yin is more of an Asian inspired yoga form that targets connective tissue and fascia, ligaments, the more fibrous calcium tissue, and meridians. So whereas the yang practice fires up muscles and moves blood and is related to chakras, the yin is more targeted toward connective tissue and meridians, like acupuncture and
Say
acupressure.
that's more pranic generating.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I'd say they both are. And as a matter of fact, I would say that the two combined are the perfect supplement. And listen, it's like certain people gravitate, oh, this is an important thing. Certain people gravitate toward a certain type of practice. And I want to tell the viewers right now, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to say this so organically. What tends to go wrong is that you say to yourself, oh, I want to pick up a yoga practice. And there are all different types of yoga practices, right? You have vinyasa, you have ashtanga, you have a Bikram original hot yoga, you have yin yoga, you have restorative yoga. So there's so many varieties. And let's say that you walk into a room of one flavor of yoga and you don't like it. And so then you go, oh no, I don't like yoga. I tried it. But there are so many choices and so many types. And when you find, one, you got to find like the one that really suits you, or not just suits you. Don't limit yourself, because a yoga practice is meant to support you through the life. In other words, it's not live to do yoga, it's do yoga to live, right? So I do want to encourage everyone to, if you try yoga once and you don't like it, try a different kind of yoga. There are so many different types. Now, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, how do you essentially define yoga? I mean, I would say for me, I remember as a child just looking at my hands and figuring out, how does my mind make my hand move? So if we go right back to the basics, how do you define that, yoga?
Well, there are the path through the self to the self. There are 8 limbs of yoga. Only one of the 8 limbs involves asana. So when you ask me, how do I define yoga? It's not limited to asana, right? You have all of the limbs of yoga, all of the limbs of the tree. So I consider yoga the inner journey. And I will say the path of enlightenment is through the spine, but there are many ways through the spine, not limited to asana.
Well, you
And
say
by the way,
yoga is the inner journey to the true self. Is that what you would say?
definitely. And asana is not the only way to get there, but I don't want to get off on a tangent here because that's
No, I just wanted that cleared up because you use it, and I wanted to just have that. So go ahead. Yes. go
yeah.
ahead.
So I mean, we're primarily talking about, when we say how yoga is consciousness, we're primarily talking about the connection between asana, one path of yoga, one limb of yoga, and consciousness. But there are 8 limbs. And by the way, first of all, asana is as viable as all the other limbs of yoga for, you know, self-discovery, inner journey, and enlightenment and awareness. There are any number of ways to get there. So I definitely want to say
So when you
that.
say asana, you basically, that refers to moving the body into certain, I know it's very basic, certain postures, or any posture would be an asana, or only certain postures are asanas.
Okay, that's a lot of questions in one.
No, I just
Let
want
me
to
take
define
them all.
asana then, just define that.
Well, asana is part of hatha yoga, which means seated postures and seated positions, but not literally sitting down. Seated, I think, means, you know, the kind of the visual analogy I love to give is, let's say you have a funnel and you put a marble in the funnel and it's kind of spinning, and then just drops in the slot. That to me is like seated.
Okay.
And that can be acquired through sitting and
Right.
through executing asana. And so hatha yoga, kind of like all postures, are fit in the asana category of hatha yoga, seated position, something like that.
All right. So go ahead, continue with, because you
Yeah, I want to get back to that
thesis. Yeah,
before
go
we
ahead.
get too far off.
Yes.
What I noticed is that I had come from a consciousness of a yang practice. And I did say a consciousness of a yang practice. And the people that gravitate toward a yang practice tend to be the people that love to work hard. And that definitely suited my nature and my personality, which is why I loved that practice. It's like that you haven't, you know, lived until you've died the sweetest death type of practice, killing the ego. Now, when I kind of crossed over into a yin practice, I recognized that as a practice of surrender. And I immediately recognized the two as a perfect, complete set, yin and yang, of course. Not one or the other, both. Not one, then the other, both. Not, you know, how about both at once? And so, and remember, I gave myself all these full permissions to really just learn the rules, to expand beyond the rules. And so now this is a more important concentrated talking point. So when I recognize them as different consciousnesses, yin and yang, I started to just play. I started to allow myself permission to play. And I said, well, if the magic ingredient of yin is surrender over time, and if I know through my yang practice that a very deep level of practice is having the ability to contract everything that you need to support the posture and relax everything else, how long could I hold a very yang style posture for? And through surrender, through contracting what I need to support the posture, and through learning to relax everything else. Now, I want to tell you that in the original hot yoga class, there's a posture called camel pose. And in that so-called beginner level class, which is actually an all level class, camel pose is the deepest back bend that you do. It's the maximum compression of the spine. And in that class, the first set is like 30 seconds. And the second set is maybe or maybe not a little longer, but a very, very, very long camel pose in the context of 26 postures, 2 times each. And in this case, in a hot room, 30 seconds to a minute, that's a long hold. So I thought, well, if 30 seconds to a minute is a long hold in a deep back bend in a hot room, then how long could I hold, say, for example, a different posture like a wheel? How long would I be able to hold a wheel if I was practicing in a different context, not in the midst of a hot class of 26 postures and 2 times each, but just in a yin environment of a long hold on a deep posture where I am relaxing the target area. So I started to give myself permission to play. And I'm in a screen share right now. And if you don't mind, I'll just kind of talk into the picture.
Yes, please.
And
please,
I want to
please
show
do
you
that.
this. So, and I'm not sure where it is. So let me, here we go. Can you see that?
Yes, yes, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's what I did. If I could just talk while you're looking at the picture.
Oh, no, what is this called?
Well, I'm going to say it's just a wheel. It's just a wheel. It's a back bend. You just push up from the floor. You can either do it from standing or from lying down. Most people lie down, get their hands and feet in position, nice inhale, exhale, push. And then this one happens to be a little deeper. So by the way, yeah, let me just get to it when I get to it. Okay. So, I thought, well, how long could I hold a wheel? And I just picked a number out of thin air. And I said, I'm going to see if I could hold that wheel for 3 minutes, because remember, 1 minute in the scheme of 26 postures, 2 times each in a hot room, that's a long, long, long back bend. And I simply didn't know. And so I set my clock for 3 minutes and I, pushed into a wheel and just relaxed as much as I could and breathed. And I was able to do it for 3 minutes. And I thought it was hard, but I definitely knew that I had much, much more in me. And so I knew that I was going to work my way to 5 minutes. And that came probably within, as I recall, maybe a day or 2. I was pushing into a wheel and holding it for 5 minutes. And once I pushed into a wheel and held it for 5, boom, a fire was lit within me. And so 5, now this is what I was doing. And I mean, over time, not in one day, obviously. 5 becomes 6, 7, 8. By the time I could do 8, I knew I would be able to do a 10-minute wheel. Now, normally, like on my social media, when I post, first of all, I'm that super cryptic Scorpio. Less is more. Picture says 1,000 words. I feel like if your verbiage is too lengthy, people would go, oh, that's too long. I don't have time. And they won't even bother reading it if it's just too much writing sometimes. So so I typically keep my posts super short and sweet. And I will also say, typically everything I post is just for me. I'm talking to myself. And by the way, like in my social media, if you know me on social media, you really actually know me. That's actually me. So what I want to tell you is that when I did that 10-minute wheel for the first time, that was blog worthy. Okay, now we're back to talking about the mind, Alan. So let me really expand this conversation. So the 10-minute wheel, I wrote a blog on that. And the reason I wrote a blog is because I learned so much about the mind and the modifications of the mind. And I learned it through holding that wheel for 10 minutes. Physically, I described that as like feeling like I was doing a wheel on the fault line of, an active earthquake. And I felt like I had like spinal fluid dripping out of my third eye. And, now we're going back to, when we talked last, you asked me, well, what is it about me that's so intense? That was intense. Like loving, like being energized by being in that level, right, of myself is what I'm going to call it. And anyway, here's what I learned from that 10-minute wheel. Because remember, I'm never just going, look at me and look what I could do. I'm always saying, look what I learned about myself by doing this. And can I help you? Can I support you on that level? Can I share myself with you in the form of what I learned in a 10-minute wheel? So what I learned first and foremost, remember that, oh, this is perfect. Remember how in Standing Bow we talked about you are not your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
You are not your thoughts?
Yeah.
Now let's circle back around to that. In the 10-minute wheel, I had those thoughts. And they said, oh, you can't. This is too hard. This is too much. That's long enough. Come down. Come out now. You can't do it anymore. Now, this was that experience in the moment of having the ability to recognize I am not those thoughts. those thoughts just said to me, I can't. And that is not true. And so I'm going to put those thoughts aside. I'm going to, oh, I'm upside down, right? Now look at this. Watch this again. I'm going to realize, okay, well, not so much here. I'm doing some work here, but my head is a 12-pound weight, 10 or 12 pounds, and I'm upside down. So if I just relax my neck and let my head hang heavy and decompress, and I can push from the shoulders through the heels of the palms, but I can relax the spine where it's bending. And I was giving myself a lot of permissions. So I gave myself permission to just cradle my pelvis side to side, shift the weight into my shoulders, shift the weight into my
Picture
heels.
again, because I don't know how you actually bend your spine backwards like that.
I'm going to show you a video in a minute. Let me stay on the thought if you don't mind
Okay,
for a
go ahead.
moment.
Sure.
So I would give myself permissions to just relax and breathe into my body and move into my body and only contract what I need to and relax everything else. And I was listening to music and I was counting out my breath. And remember, I told you what I've learned more than anything is how to work with my mind, right? And what I learned is that my mind said to me at about the 7-minute mark, you cannot do this anymore. You have to come out. And I went, oh, that's not true. I am not that thought. That thought is not me. I'm just the observer of it. And so again, I started just relaxing my neck and moving through the body and relaxing what I can and shifting the weight and listening to music and singing and counting and, just using my mind a little differently, redirecting it. And by the time you know it, the 10-minute clock was up. And I knew with all certainty that at the 7-minute mark, when my mind told me you cannot do this anymore, that was a lie. It was not true, because 3 minutes later, which by the way feels like eternity when you're in that position at first, 3 minutes later, I was still in it. It wasn't true that 3 minutes ago I had to quit. Now, I do want to tell you that what I ended up doing is I took this on as just a personal inner journey of learning the modifications of the mind and expansion of the mind. So remember in our first talk, I told you that yoga is not even spine centric, it's mind centric. And now we've actually circled back and alluded to that multiple times, because I talked a lot about neuroplasticity and sending the command from the brain through the spine without the thought obstruction. We've talked about when the hemispheres are in balance and we open the channel, we're talking about mind. Now we're talking about mind again. What I ended up doing is this, that 10-minute wheel, I then worked that to 15 minutes and then 20, 25. And I knew that I was going to go for 60 minutes. Now, I want to tell you a fun story, only for no reason other than it just delights me. And that is that I wanted to see, I was so curious, I was so lit and inspired by what I was learning about my own mind. I wanted to see what is the longest anyone has ever held a backbend ever. And my first source was to turn to the Guinness Book of World Records. Certainly the world's longest backbend would be in the Guinness Book of World Records. And so I looked it up and the entry item didn't exist. And I went, yes, I'm doing it. Not because I care about setting a world record, but because I care about sharing my message about the modifications of the mind. And I started posting a lot of pictures and using a hashtag, 10-minute backbend, 10-minute backbend, 10-minute backbend, while I was training on my way to the 1-hour wheel. Now, I did apply, oh, by the way, 10 became 15, 15 became 20, 25, 30. Now, I had a student friend that I was training, and I invited her in on this with me to travel this path and do this journey with me. And so she started training that with me. And together, 30 became 45 and 45 became 60.
Together you held the posture together.
Yeah, we did it together. I'm about to show you that video. And together, we trained our way to a 1-hour wheel. Now, I do want to tell you, first of all, it wasn't an entry in Guinness Book of World Records. So I thought, well, that would be very inspiring to the yoga community. And so I thought I would do it so that I could really spread the message about the mind and the body, and how breath is a bridge between mind and the body, because it's not about bending your spine backwards. It's about connecting to calm, deep breath while you bend your spine backwards, because if you can breathe there, you can calm down there. And if you can calm down there, you can spend time there. And all the things that, I'm gathering up all the things we've already referenced all into one. And because this is all one conversation. This is one massive conversation. So I thought, okay, well, Google, Guinness Book of World Records doesn't have it. And so I'll just Google it because everything is on Google, right? So I just Googled world's longest backbend. And it was tricky to find, but I think that what I found, I'm not sure if I'm exact on this, but I think that what I found was something like a 10-year-old gymnast who held a wheel for 7 minutes. That was the most I could find. And I had already done 10 and I was going for 60, right? What? World's longest backbend on record is 10 minutes and I'm doing 60. So when I got to 60 minutes, I applied to Guinness Book of World Records. And by the way, that 60 minutes, I did it together with Giselle, and we got it on video, and it was 60 minutes plus, and that's what I'll kind of show you in a minute. And we got it on video, and I applied to Guinness Book of World Records, and I said, can this please be a category? And that kind of appeal or application for a brand new entry item took like 6 weeks because of the backlog of applicants. And so we were waiting, super excited to hear back. In the meantime, it doesn't matter. It's already on video and posted. And when I got the word back from Guinness, they said, thank you so much for your application, but this is far too specific. Okay, now they actually have a headset in Guinness Book of World Records. And what that is a contortion move. If you wanted me to scroll, I actually could probably pull up what a headset looks like. But
let's describe it. Yeah.
A headset is, you know what I'll do while we're talking, I'll pull it up on my phone.
But I also want to ask you, after 60 minutes, of course, you worked up to it over, how long did it take you to go from 10 minutes to 60 minutes?
Oh my goodness, maybe, I mean, a matter of months, right? But I want you to remember that not only did it take months, but I was already in what you would call kind of elite athlete status. I was doing all the yoga asana championships on stage. And by the way, there is absolutely positively nothing wrong with the realization that asana cultivates a body that is strong and flexible and intelligent strength. So
isn't that what it's for? Isn't that what it's for? There's nothing wrong. Of course, that's what it's right about it, isn't it?
I want to say that when there are people who say that it's wrong to refer to yourself as an elite athlete through yoga, and I will say the natural response of asana is that your body is powerfully strong and immeasurably deep and extremely intelligent. And by the way, very oxygenated and activated and, all of the things. But I am going to say it's not limited to sport. That is the way that yoga is different from gymnastics and all the other things, because it's the inner journey. So remember, we've been talking now for hours and hours about consciousness and breath and, inner journey and self-realization, but the natural response to that is that my body was in elite athlete shape when I started training for this, and it still took another few months, and those months were primarily on the level of the mind. I was cultivating more mind. I already had a body that would backbend for that long. So
are there any effects of doing that? Were you sore afterwards, or did you feel energized? How did you feel after 60 minutes of that?
I think I want to tell you, I'm going to answer your question a little bit differently than the way that you asked it.
Okay.
First of all, the biggest answer I could give you is that when your body is in that condition, I was in a place where there's nothing that could make me sore. I could do as much of anything always, and I just never ever got sore anymore. Having said that, that was a journey, and when you embark upon this journey, you get sore along the way for sure. And I want to tell you that where you get sore actually is indicative of where you're bending in your spine. So if you're, these are kind of subtleties and nuances that most people definitely would not be aware of. And that is that if you feel really sore in your quads and your glutes, sorry, I'm scrolling while I'm
No,
looking for the
that's
photo while
okay.
I'm talking.
That's
If
okay.
you feel really sore in your quads and your glutes as a result of starting some long hold back bends, that's definitely an indication that you're bending primarily in the low back and therefore more load bearing through the lower body extremities. So your butt and your quads are going to be really sore. But when you're backward bending in your upper back and you really have shoulders over the wrists and you're pushing from the shoulders through the heels of the palms, you're more likely to be more sore in the arms and shoulders. So where you are, where you're sore, gives you information. And so the goal there then would be to bend evenly and equally, and therefore either you're sore equally, your shoulders and your arms and your butt and your quads, or in my case, actually, you're not sore at all. If I could get back to the story, and
Yes,
that is that
please.
Guinness Book of World Records said to me that a regular wheel is far too specific, but that this posture was accepted as an entry item. And that didn't quite make sense to me. And I thought,
Wait, can I see that again? Sorry.
absolutely, yeah. And I'm going to tell you because, okay, so this, I call this reverse plow.
That's easy for you, isn't it?
Well, I want to tell you, I could have beat that world record.
What was
But
the
it's
time?
not, Alan, no, I have to say this.
Yes.
It's not about a world record. It's not about beating. It's not. What I wanted was an audience through which I could share my message on the level of modifications of the mind, what I learned through doing this. So the point of my story is that they said that that wheel was too specific of an entry item to be accepted. But this was an entry item that was accepted as not being too specific, which I kind of went, I kind of scratched my head on that, because there are now millions of people in the world doing wheel, just doing wheel. It's no longer specific. And now let me tell you that I got a follow-up letter from Guinness that said you can appeal that, and the appeal process is $1,000. And I went, oh, okay, I got it.
How long was that thing? How long was that posture? How long did that person hold that posture?
I can't remember. I don't know. It's not even my point, but I do know that I was doing a whole lot of this because I was going past it, right? So I remember it's not about bending your spine backwards. It's about connecting to calm, deep breath. If you can breathe there, you can calm down there. If you can calm down there, you can spend time there. So I just want to go back and circle around, because I know some of the viewers are going to say, oh, world record back bend, that's ego. Let me be very clear. This is not that. That is not the point of this.
I know it isn't.
The point of this is not beating. The point of this is not record. The point of this is that through it's what I call self-cultivation leads to service. And by doing it for myself, I can hold that space for others. And I'm not talking about by being able to do some schmancy posture. I'm talking about the inner journey and how we use the body. Remember our first conversation? We need to go back to that. Use the body as the learning device for the mind. And it's about knitting, integrating, and embodiment of all the levels of your being, the level of thoughts and beliefs, the level of feelings and emotions that are in response to thoughts and beliefs, and then the body, which houses all of the levels, and the connectedness to breath, and the ability to concentrate, and all of these things, and how you use it on your mat so you can use it you learn it on the mat so you can use it in the life. And let's not lose sight of the forest for the trees. I don't care about how long and this and that and how deep and this and that. What I care about is what I learned from it and the message that I'm able to share through the knowing in my tissues, through the experience. Remember that doing is knowing and the rest is just information. So I could sit here and talk to you about all of these concept, but I'm not talking to you about concepts. I'm talking to you about my experience of knowing, and that is what I can teach you, because when I teach you, I try to help you find a feeling. And if you can find a feeling, you can reproduce it. And that's when I've transmitted knowing into your tissues, and also to help you work through the mental barriers of your mind as evidenced by the long hold wheel, and to prove that the only limits that exist are the ones that you adhere to in the constructs of your mind, and how to break through those barriers. So again, viewers, watch the first conversation where we talked about all of that. And secondly, recognize that this is not about that. This is about every aspect of your being, and who you are in truth is what I would call it. Because when I'm teaching you, I'm not teaching you just on the level of the body. I'm talking to you on every level of your being.
Well, the fact that you could do that for an hour, put yourself to the test. What did you learn about yourself and about consciousness because of that practice there?
Yeah, it's what I've said. I've learned that you are not your thoughts and those thoughts are not true. And I've learned how to actually recognize them when they come up and work through them, work around them. And ultimately they aren't there. Through practice, what happens is you actually deconstruct those mental barriers so that they no longer are there. And then when fear or ego pops up and tries to stop you in the form of a limiting thought and agreement made in fear, a limiting belief, you recognize it as just that, and you put it aside and it no longer exists. And then you can navigate like that through your life. So do you want me to show you kind of the video? Oh, it's 11.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We'll cover some of those other talking points you wanted to get to.
Yeah, I think that was that. I mean, that's probably good if I just try to find that video. Maybe it's here. I think that I had pulled it up for you, right?
Yeah.
Here it is. Okay, so now this is okay, November 1st of 2017. And this is a 1 hour wheel. This is the day. This is Giselle and I. And, you know, the funny thing is that even with my daughter's dog, Cosmo, kind of like literally in our face at every given moment, we were able, and even when we were up against it, we were really able to just concentrate and hold. And so, see the little puppy there, this is the way it's going to be like for the full hour. If that doesn't put you to the test, I don't know what does. But if I just kind of skip through, I want to show you kind of what it looks like. So you're, you know, we're in a wheel, but I'm literally kind of like petting the dog, and, you know, Giselle is pulling out the Bhagavad Gita, you know, and we're literally, by the way, having conversation throughout the entire, okay, now look at this. See how quiet it got all of a sudden? See how still we got all of a sudden? That's because it's starting to get hard. And now it's commanding concentration on the level of the mind. And, you know, so here we've been in for like 13 minutes, and you can see that some relaxation is required. You can see Giselle just relaxing her neck and her face, her mind and her breath. And now she's starting to shift a little weight through the body. So, you know, I've really coached her through this. And I will tell you that by the time, yeah, here's a little kind of shifting of the weight. I'll tell you right around here, maybe around here, it starts to get pretty serious. And Giselle actually says to me at about 35 minutes, she says to me something like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Today is not the day. And we literally had another 25 minutes to go, which is like a lifetime when you're in this position. And so I started working with her on the level of the mind. This is no longer about the body. It's about the connection of the mind with the body through the breath. So remember, breath is the bridge between mind and the body. So we start having our conversations, and she's telling me right around here that she's not sure she can do it anymore. And then here we are, let's see, 10 minutes later, and, you know, the body is fatiguing and the shoulders are shaking, and I'm talking to her, holding her in a space, letting her mind, you know, glued to my words, and she's staying in. And here's literally another 5 minutes later. I'm still, you know, I'm smiling, laughing, talking, you know, and we're still in it. And looks like it's loading. And anyway, the bottom line is that we get to this 60 minutes. And I'll tell you, that, let me see if we can get a little sound here. We're actually going to go beyond 60 minutes just to make sure. Okay, let's see. I'm showing her. She goes, oh my God, thank you. So we're nearly there at the 60-minute mark.
Wait, but I thought you're grabbing your ankles. You're not grabbing your ankles, and this is just the back.
Oh, that was a different video. Yeah, that was the 10-minute one. That was the first time I did the 10 minutes.
Well, this, you're holding yourself in this position for an hour.
Solid hour. Yeah.
And more.
So after the, okay, the hour is up. And oh, Alan, there was a question that you asked me that after I show you this, I want to circle back around to it. So the bottom line is we're kind of going to lay there for a minute, and then we're going to get up and we're going to just basically high five each other, because what we had done was really just kind of an epic feat.
Yeah, it's intense to hold yourself in any position for an hour.
Yeah, so that first one that I did was, I need to stop the sound on that. Sorry, one sec. Oh, where's that video?
You could just
let me turn it off.
time or
I can't actually find it playing.
You can go back to the screen share and just
go back to screen share. Thanks. Sorry about that.
And shut it off there.
I'm not even sure where it is, but let's see. There we go. Stop share. There we go. Thanks. No.
No, just stop share, but stop the video when you go to screen share.
Screen share pulled up something different. Maybe this one. There we are.
Okay, so you can stop video.
There we are. Thanks.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So that first picture that I showed you, the black and white, was the first time I did 10 minutes. And in the 10 minutes, it had now become easy enough that I was able to work deeper and deeper and deeper, finishing in what you might call the deepest back bend. Because in that 10-minute back bend, I had not only hands together, feet together, and my fingers touching my heels. And so that was like a deep, 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 deep wheel. So I kind of got deeper and deeper and deeper so that I finished at the deepest in the 10 minutes. This one was a full 60 minutes where I needed all the permissions to be able to relax everything that I possibly could to be able to stay in that position for that amount of time. So now, you know, just I guess if I want to try to conclude all the thoughts that we've talked about, I never did circle back around and pay the $1,000 to, you know, file the appeal to try to get a wheel accepted in Guinness, but I suppose I could at any given moment. It's right there, but that's not the point of it. So let's go back to the point of yoga and consciousness.
Yes, and that is why we're here.
Yeah. So there are things that I've learned on the level of the mind, and that is the level of consciousness. And that, by the way, is beyond thought, beyond the level of thinking. It's beyond mind. It's in pure time. So these are all the talking points today in the form of standing bow, in the form of the long hold wheel, in the form of all the, you know, little tangents that we took along the way. The main point I wanted to impart is how yoga is consciousness, mind-centric, but beyond thought. And that is a state of consciousness that is meditation. And so therein lies maybe a better answer to what is yoga. It's that life is the meditation. And you learn that on the mat and other ways to use it in your life.
No, I think we should continue these conversations because I want to get to the point where we go beyond the asanas, because you're a master of that, and then talk about the living each moment as a practice of being in every thought, because you've done so much inner work with your own mind that you do say that how you live your life is how you're on the mat. But how has it been for you as being a yogini in the world that is, you know, very unconscious, very fast-paced, very fear-based, very limiting? How do you use the consciousness you've achieved to be a teacher and be, in a way, an example for that, and function in that very dysfunctional world? That's what I'd like to keep pursuing.
Yes, yes to that. And there are so many answers that we've already given in the form of that ability to stay grounded and connected to your breath,
Mm.
to not be in reaction to other people's thoughts, much less your own, right? To recognize that those thoughts are not true. So it is a bigger conversation, and I do look forward to having that with you. And so maybe next time we'll start to segue into those conversations on the level of what we could call spirit, less about asana
Yeah.
and more conversation where the topic is spirit. And of course, I can draw upon yoga because they are the same. Yoga is constantly being seated in the truth of who you are amidst the circumstances. It's not even just being able to stay calm in the midst of the storm. It's to be the eye of the storm. And it's to not even recognize the chaos as a storm, but the perfect storm. Something like that. We'll have those conversations.
But you know, I really appreciate you not just sharing, but you're giving us the essence of your life for the past couple of years and what you've achieved and what you've learned to teach others about. And thank you for sharing your being and your, you know, everything that you've so committed yourself to. That's what I really appreciate about this conversation, because it's an art form, it's a practice, it's a spiritual discipline, and it's been your life. I mean, that's it. That's what you dedicated yourself to. So thank you.
Thank you. And now you have segued into this other talking point that's kind of extraordinary, but maybe we save it for next time.
Okay, let's save it for next time. I actually do have another meeting, but
Perfect. You got it.
but tell people how to find you, where to find you, how to practice with you, online, offline. Yeah, tell people about
Yeah,
it.
you got it. So I have a lot that is being reformulated. It's under construction in the form of a new platform. So stay tuned for the new platform of kimtangyoga.com. But now you can find me on Facebook as a person. Kim Tang is a friend, but I've maxed out on friends, but I do circulate and cycle my friends to be able to, keep adding new ones. But I have a Kim Tang Yoga Facebook page that you can like and follow. I have Instagram. I have a YouTube channel that I'm getting ready to add just hundreds and hundreds of hours of content to. But what I want to tell you that I have going on, more importantly, is I have a platform that I call Worldwide Sessions with Kim Tang. And there are many kind of streams on this platform. One of them is an all-level comprehensive foundational backward bending education. And I have the first series out. It's called Spine, All Spine. And that first series is, I call it From Traction Through Drop Back. And this is a video series that's available. Each session is 2.5 hours of rich, dense, specific, high quality backward bending educational content. And each one has a corresponding homework video. I also have one that I call KT Drills. And this is basically a worldwide session that was recorded and is now available for designated postures. And again, 2.5 hours of rich, deep, specific content, and then a homework video associated with it. I'm getting ready to expand on that. So I'm doing something that I call collaborative conversations that are global conversations with other people that I consider masters. These are conversations on the level of two friends talking to each other on a very high level for the benefit of observers to join in. I'm also doing something as my seminar content. My seminar is called Nuances. So these will be opportunities for you to join me live where my eyes on you, I'll answer your questions. And I'm also doing the next set of Spine, All Spine, the next set of KT Drills. So I have just a lot going on, and you can find all of that on my social media and also on the platform when it is complete.
Which is all under Kim Tang Yoga.
Kim Tang Yoga.
Thank you, Kim. Let's keep going with this because you have so much to say, because you're an athlete, you're a yogi, but you're a thinker, and you've developed, and you're a spiritual teacher. So let's go into that spiritual. I mean, I know we've been talking about that, but like what you've understood about the non-personal aspect of the mind in doing the yoga. That's the
Definitely.
part that I think is really interesting, the transcendence of the body with the mind.
I look forward to that.
Thank you, Kim,
Thank you, Alan.
for your practice and your sharing and your enthusiasm, really, because you could do anything. You put it towards yoga, but I bet anything you were enthusiastic about, you could master that.
I think that's the point for everyone,
Yes.
is that remember, once you learn to work with your consciousness, you can use your consciousness to create anything. And
Yeah.
this is what I chose to create with mine. And I can help you cultivate your consciousness so you can create anything you choose to create with yours. So that's what I mean by learn it on the mat, use it in the life.
Great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much.
And we'll talk. This is Alan Steinfeld for New Realities. I'm talking to Kim Tang Yoga. You can reach me, or you can keep watching this channel. Up next couple of days, I'll be having more live streams. 8/8, I'm doing 2 live programs about the Lion's Gate, which is kind of accessing the higher conscious portal. So look for me there, or email me at newrealities@earthlink.net. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everyone on the stream and everyone who will be watching. Okay, see you next time.